Small business owners across the country are already feeling the pain of the tariff game as they anticipate a surge in prices across the board, costs they will have to either eat or pass on to customers.
And the tariffs are causing headaches for small business owners. Georgia small businesses and farmers are bracing for international retaliation for the tariffs. Cherie Dunn Reynolds owns a print shop in Henry County. She got an email from one of her distributors from China after President Trump issued the 54% tariffs on Chinese goods. Reynolds will now have to pay more for shipping costs and says she'll have to pass these costs to her customers.
It's just heartbreaking. And we need our leaders to fight for us. We need the lawmakers to demand that something different happens. They know for a fact that we cannot survive this, and they don't care.
Joining me now is Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, Democrat of Georgia. He's a member of both the Finance and Banking Committee. Senator, it's great to have you on the program.
Great to be here with you, Chris.
Obviously, there's a lot of back and forth today, but we still have a pretty high tariff level that's been set, 25% and for a bunch of stuff with Canada and Mexico, our largest trading partners, 125% with China, the 10% around the board. What have you been hearing? I know senators across the country have been swamped with phone calls and messages. What have you been hearing from Georgians about what this will do to them?
Well, listen, it's captured painfully and elegantly by the woman you just showed. This is literally about the family farm, and it's about the families all across Georgia. Let's be really clear what this tariff operation is all about. This is a regressive tax. This is a tax that disproportionately places the burden on hardworking families in rural communities and urban communities all across the state of Georgia, all across our country. And the question is the very question she asked: who's fighting for us? Who's fighting for ordinary people? And the president put a pause on some additional tariffs this afternoon, but the pressure is still there, and this means increased costs in an environment in which families are already struggling to make ends meet. Congress can fix this. We just need enough Republicans to stand with us and take the steering wheel away from the madman who's got us in a car driving us over a cliff.
Yeah, I'd like you to say a little more about that. We had Maria Cantwell on the other night, who's co-sponsoring new legislation with Chuck Grassley that would require congressional approval of tariffs. There's also these privilege resolutions which are being introduced, which essentially be a way of revoking the emergency declared by the president as essentially the pretext for these. There's some Republican interest in this, although I think today probably Trump bought himself some more time. How important is it for Congress to take back this authority?
Listen, we have seen the United States Congress sadly rolled by this president. And it's not because there aren't any options. There are options. We need 4 Republicans in the House or 3 Republicans in the Senate to stand up. And we could change all of this. But we saw this during the whole process, the nominations process, when this was going on. I mean, we saw people who were manifestly unqualified and unfit. And Donald Trump basically dared my Republican friends to block people who clearly should not be sitting in the offices where they're sitting. So here we are again. The Article 2 branch of government has a chance to stand up for the people that we're supposed to represent. I'm proud, even on a bad day, that the people of Georgia have endowed me with a sacred trust. They have said, look, we can't all go to Washington, but we're going to send you. And we're going to trust that in rooms of power where deals are being cut and where powerful interests have loud voices, you're going to be thinking about ordinary people. You're going to be thinking about farmers who are trying to make ends meet. You're going to be thinking about families who are trying to make their budgets work day to day, which is why I and my colleagues have introduced a piece of legislation this week that will expand the child tax credit and lift families out of poverty. Donald Trump and those who are working beside him are obsessed. They are working in overdrive right now to give a tax cut to the richest of the rich because they apparently feel that that's their duty. I think it's my duty to stand up for ordinary families, which is why I'm focused on this child tax credit.
One of the weird aspects of the tariff madness is the way that it intersects with that large tax cut bill that is working its way now through the House and the Senate. In fact, that budget resolution was just pulled in the House, partly because it mirrors the Senate version, which a bunch of House Freedom Caucus members don't like. That said, the basic math of it are enormous cuts to Medicaid and big tax cuts for rich folks, more or less. But there's also an aspect of this, which is that Trump wants the tariff revenue as a means of paying for the tax cuts. But if he cuts a bunch of deals, he can't get that. So there's this sort of weird thing happening where it's like, are you going to get the revenue from the tariffs or you're not going to have the tariffs, but you can't have both?
Listen, the math ain't mathin'. It's certainly not working for ordinary families. These tariffs, again, this is a tax. This is the president jacking up the price for every single thing that you have to buy, which we know disproportionately and negatively impacts families. Middle class families, working class families. At the same time, he's trying to pass a huge tax cut to his wealthy friends, the wealthy and the well-connected. I think it's backwards. It's Robin Hood in reverse. It's robbing from the poor in order to pay the rich. Meanwhile, it is creating a huge hole in the national debt. So the irony of this moment is that they are literally trying to take Medicaid from families, from poor people, most of whom are children, and then saddle our children with a debt generations from now that is created by those whose priorities are all mixed up. We need a revolution in values, is what Dr. King called it. We need to center the concerns of ordinary people. When I'm home in Georgia, going back to my church and my pulpit, I talk to folks who are wondering what in the world is going on in D.C. and who's standing up for them. This expanded child tax credit that we've introduced this week, when we expanded it in 2021, we lifted 165 Georgia children out of poverty. We cut child poverty by nearly 50%. We have a chance to do something good and noble, not only for these families, but it will help our economy in the long run.
165,000 Georgians and millions nationwide. Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, thank you very much.